Guys, welcome to our next video on Greek civilization. So we're going to call this video 4.5 just because it's going to be a relatively short video because all we have to do for at least the first part of our unit is finish up with our great thinkers. And if I would have put this on our last video would have been just so long. Okay, so if we look at where we left off, we've still been talking about Greek culture, so we've been looking at the mythology and the dramatists, epics and fables, and then we started to talk about this idea of philosophy. So we said a philosopher is a person who seeks wisdom. So they're always trying to answer that question as the why question. So something happened, and they're going to be the guys that, or ladies, okay, in our day and age, that say, well, why did that happen? What different circumstances are going around in our area that led to that event, or what sorts of things does this event lead to in the future? So they're always constantly looking at that big picture. So we said philosophers really became very prominent in ancient Greece. So we looked at the sophists the other day, and we said that these were teachers that went one city-state to the next. While they taught great things like rhetoric, we also said a lot of people didn't care for the sophists just because they challenged this idea that the gods controlled human actions. And then where we left off in our last video, we were looking at a guy named Socrates, and we said Socrates was a pretty smart guy. And what his idea was to teach people how to question. So we said he came up with this idea of the Socratic method, that instead of lecturing to his students, he would give them the pointed question, and his job then would to help these students develop their own opinions and ask questions and so on to gain the truth. Okay, we said that Socrates' teaching, while we still use it today, it's very concrete and it's very useful in our classes and so on. We said during ancient times, especially after the Persian Wars, a lot of leaders feared this kind of teaching because they believed that it would lead people to question authority. And we know that once people start questioning authority and things like that, that could possibly lead to rebellion. Okay, so a lot of these leaders are going to eliminate the Socratic method. They're going to say, you can't do that. We can't have these open debates, because they didn't want that fear of rebellion. Okay, but the problem was, we said that Socrates just kept going on. So he's going to teach what he believed in, and it ended up that he was arrested, and he was charged with a crime that we said was a touch sketchy, because it wasn't exactly what he did. All right, so Socrates was then sentenced to death. Now, as we mentioned at the last of the Ed Puzzle video of number 4, we said that Socrates' teachings didn't die with him because he had such a good following and so many students that believed in what he was saying that philosophy is still going to move in that forward direction. So we're going to look at 2 other philosophers that were really common during ancient Greece, and their names are going to be Plato, not Play-Doh, and Aristotle. Okay, and both of these men were previous students of Socrates. Not that they agreed with everything that he said, but that's where they really got their start. So we're looking at Plato, which here is pictured in this painting right above my head. And what he's going to do, he started a school that was called the Academy. So Plato is a philosopher that's looking at his big ideas. And he's best known for a book that he wrote known as The Republic. Now, Plato, he focused a lot on government. So he's looking at the government of Athens, and he's looking at the government of Sparta and Thebes and Corinth. And he's trying to, come up with this idea for the best government. Okay, remember, he's thinking big picture. So he's looking at Athens, and he's going to say, well, how can we improve this? So in his book, The Republic, he really goes on to say what he thinks as is the best government solution for all of Greece. Okay, so what he's going to do is describe this perfect society. So what Plato said, now remember, this is what he said, it's up to leaders to actually take his opinion. So this isn't what happened, this is just one of his ideas. Alright, so Plato figured that if you divided society in 3 different ways, that the society and the government would be perfect. Okay, so he's going to have his top group, and they're going to be known as the philosopher kings. So he's going to say that a group of kings is going to rule Greece. However, they also have this knowledge of philosophy, or have philosophers that are hired into the government, so they're able to lead with logic and wisdom. So they're all thinking big picture. So that's our first group. They're also our top. Our middle group, those are going to be our warriors. So what Plato is going to say is that warriors needed a specific category in Greece because they're the ones that are going to defend. They're going to, sorry, my phone is ringing. They're going to defend our society. So they needed a special place. They're the second class. And our third class of citizens, those are going to be the rest of the people. So they're going to be our workers. They're going to produce the food, the clothing, the weapons, and so on. All right, Plato did not like Athens' government because he didn't believe that this third class of people had enough knowledge to ever become a warrior or a king. So the reason people make clothes or make food is because they lack courage to be a warrior and they lack knowledge to be a leader. Kind of a slap in the face for the working class. Okay, but he put all those ideas together in this. So he did believe that the government should be reasonable. Okay, he just didn't like the democracy that Athens had. He felt that it gave the people too much power. He didn't believe that common people, okay, the working class, could think for themselves and make educated decisions. He felt the only people who could do that were the upper class. Okay, he felt that the lower class, lacking education and so on, would be too influenced and would make foolish decisions. Okay, so he thought the philosopher kings would then take over and do all the above. Okay, the one thing that Plato did that is an actual, positive, at least is what we're looking at, he did feel that women should actually have more rights. So remember, in Athens, women had no rights in Athens. Sorry. All right, so we know that in Sparta, women could have more freedoms just because the men were gone at war. All right, but in Athens, women weren't able to own businesses or land. They couldn't go out in public without a male. And Plato is going to say, you know what? Women and men are pretty much equal. They should have the same opportunities for jobs and education. So we might look at his ideas on the philosopher kings as a little bit odd, okay, but his idea on women a little bit more like ours. Okay, another guy that came along during ancient Greece was a man named Aristotle. So Aristotle was this guy who actually had his fingers in a variety of things, not just philosophy, but he also did things on government and astronomy, political science, and so on. He also started a school known as the Lyceum, and he taught something that we call today the Golden Mean. And the Golden Mean is actually still taught, not necessarily by schools, but by parents and so on. All right, so the Golden Mean says that you should live moderately, be happy with what you have. Okay, and a lot of people and a lot of parents teach their kids that. This is what we have, and we are happy that we have this. It might not be great, but it might not be at the bottom either. Okay, that's the Golden Mean. Okay, like mentioned before, he did have a lot of interests. A lot of his thinking was done in the science, so he did study plants and animals and so on. He was one of the first people to start recording his observations and then making hypotheses about it. Okay, so he sort of started classifying things based on his observation, which was a huge step for science. And in science class this year, you're going to learn about classifying different types of species and so on. And Aristotle was really the man that really got that process started. Okay, if we look at Aristotle in the terms of ancient Greece and philosophy, he did write about government. This seems to be an ongoing theme, okay, because they're still trying to find that perfect government that would fit all of Greece. Okay, so Aristotle wrote a book called The Politics. And what he's going to do, he's going to divide the government into three types. So we have monarchies, oligarchies, and democracies. Okay, and he believed that in these three governments, okay, so we have the monarchy with the king, the oligarchy with the group, and the democracy with the people. He felt that the best government really just took all the best features of them and combined them all together. So you don't have one of those governments, you essentially have three. Okay, so what he did was divide his government then to different branches. So we have the chief executive, they're the head of state. Okay, we have the legislature that would assist the leader and also support the people, make the laws, and so on. Okay, and what we're going to notice is that if we look at these key words, legislature, chief executive, three governments or three branches, and then we compare it to our government, we're going to notice that those are very alike. Our president is also known as the chief executive. Our Congress has a legislative branch. Okay, the key features to Aristotle was that he was going to take government, okay, and split the power up. So the king didn't have all the power, but neither did the people. So everybody is going to share power. So if we look at the Constitution that we created in our country, we're going to notice that we also have that rule, the separation of power. There are things that our president has power to do and things he can't. things our legislature or Congress can do, and things that other branches can't. Okay, and we adopted that from Aristotle's principles. Okay, just something that we took from the ancient Greeks. And we're actually going to stop there for today. We're not going to start this history part until our next segment in investigation. So we'll see you in the next part.